And maybe they're right. Maybe I spend too much time with fan art and costumes and with my head stuck in fantasy land, so...
Who's they?
My mom, my teachers, Mr. Wilson, everyone. You know, there was a girl in our neighborhood who decided she wanted to go backpacking around Europe, and you would literally think she's joined a death cult given the way all the aunties just gossip about her.
I'm lost. What does that have to do with AvengerCon?
He's dressing up as Captain Marvel's weird.
No, it's not.
And it's childish, and I know that, okay? And let's be honest, it's not really the brown girls from Jersey City who save the world.
Sure they do. You're Kamala Khan. You want to save the world, then you're going to save the world.
Hello and welcome back to the Popcorn for Dinner podcast, a podcast about Pakistani heroes from New Jersey and the Avengers they adore. And joining me to discuss all things Kamala Khan, it's Big Hulk and Little Hulk, it's Faridah and Mo.
I really hope I'm Big Hulk.
I'm not going to tell you who is who. That's up to you guys to decide who is big and who's Little Hulk.
Well, I need to be Big Hulk. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can find out with Mo.
Okay, I mean, I'll take being Little Hulk. That's fine.
I think she was a bit rude to Little Hulk. I think Little Hulk has his benefits. I think
Definitely.
Of
course.
Yeah. Like I said, we're going to talk about the premiere of Miss Marvel. We're going to get into all of that. I'm so pleased to have Faridah and Mo both make their debuts on this podcast. Thank you both for accepting my invitation.
Thank you for inviting.
I've felt like a creep recently, just DMing people randomly on my little podcast. So I'm happy that you guys are accepted, and yeah, it makes me feel a little better about myself. But you know what? Therapy is later in the podcast, not at the start. Before we go any further in this podcast, both of you have very cool things that you do. So I would like you guys to please tell our 5 listeners, what you guys do. So I'll start with you, Faridah. Please tell them about your brilliant podcast and where they can find it, and stroke you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Bankole, for putting me here. I'm Faridah. I am a writer. I also have a podcast about women of color in literature, where we talk about all things women of color. We've had really cool authors come on our podcast. I'm also a big Kamala Khan fan. I've been reading her. Well, I used to read her when I was a teenager, and I was in this this little white town in England, and she was this really cool Muslim American superhero that I could really relate to. So I'm really, really happy to be here, and I'm thankful that you stalked me and found me.
Well, I'll probably bleep that stalk word out, but yeah, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, thankful that I found you. That's the important part.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah, and obviously you're one half of that podcast.
Yes.
We'll have Aure on this podcast soon enough.
100%.
Yeah, just let the listeners know where they can find the podcast. It's
called What They Wrote. It's on Spotify. It's also on Apple Podcasts, and it's on anywhere you can find the podcast. But yes, please follow us on Spotify. We need you guys.
And Mo is the owner and editor-in-chief of Streamr, a film and TV review site that gets screeners, guys. They're cool. They get screeners.
Nice. Love it.
Yeah, Mo, go ahead. Plug yourself.
Yeah, so it's basically as you just said, I've been doing this for a little over a year now, and I have a full-time job. I like the full-time job as well, but this is a very, very good passion of mine.
Do you want to say that again so that we can believe you? just say one more time. Say you like it.
I love it. I definitely love it. It's definitely not a 9-to-5 corporate job that I that I am in love with, that I hate. But yeah, so we do have a podcast. It's been on hiatus for about a year now, but Yeah, we're restarting it. We're actually like getting all the hosting and everything sorted out to record our first episode again.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh,
Like this
exciting.
week. So
Okay.
that'll be fun because when it was because when I started the site it was just me and one other person, and now the site's kind of gone a little bit bigger. So I've had to take on a
Yeah,
lot
you're
more
getting
people.
screeners now. You're like, yeah,
No,
Mr. Mouse is
we were
sending you
actually
screeners.
really lucky with screeners because we sort of like we launched at the time that Disney was launching its Star brand in the UK.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
what happened then was that Disney Plus took on a bunch of PR people. So what they needed then was press to fill up those PR lists. So they were just accepting anyone onto those PR lists.
Oh, okay.
So and then we started getting screeners.
Right place, right time.
Exactly that. So then we were using that leverage to with other services like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and all of that. But anyway, that's just me. You can just find me on Twitter, Mo from Streamr, and then the actual site's Twitter is Streamr News. So
Yeah, that's
all I have to say.
STREAMR. Yeah. And hopefully you guys enjoy their thoughts on this episode and you can go find them on the internet. Obviously, we took a little break on this podcast, a week break, really. But earlier this week, Ebuka and Chinedu spoke about the first 3 episodes of The Boys. Very spoiler-free. I promise that's the last time we're going to do that. From every other episode is going to be spoiler-filled. So if you like The Boys, go check out that. Ebuka spent way too long phoning about Homelander. I'm a bit scared about that. Of course, if you're just catching up with the first half of Better Call Saul, you can go back and check our episodes on Better Call Saul. We did some episodes on Barry. We're going to talk about Barry finale next week. And yeah, just a bunch of stuff coming up. So just as always, please follow us on whatever platform you're listening on. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Please rate if you're listening on Apple Podcasts on Spotify. The button is right there. Just trying to get out of the noise. So please rate us 5 stars if possible. And tell your friends who like film and TV. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a quick little break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the premiere of Miss Marvel.
What are you doing? I'm not recognizing you. Who is this rebellious girl sneaking out, lying to Abu and me?
I'm not trying to be rebellious.
And I'm trying to protect you from yourself. I've seen what happens when people get obsessed with their fantasies.
I know, you're just gonna tell me some story about Nani and...
So you knew what I was going to say tonight, huh? And you knew that it would betray me, but you still went and did it anyway.
Sorry.
It's time to stop fantasizing. I wish that you would just focus on you. Your grades, your family, your story. I mean, who do you want to be in this world, huh? Do you want to be good, like we raised you to be? Or do you want to be some, this cosmic head in the clouds person?
Miss Marvel, starring Iman Vellani. Episode 1, titled Generation Y, written by Bisha K. Ali, who people might remember from writing the incredible Loki episode Lamentis. I think that was episode 3.
Mm-hmm.
And directed by Adil El Arabi and Bilal Fallah, known collectively as Adil and Bilal. They directed most notably Bad Boys for Life, and I think they're going to direct the Bad Girl movie coming up. So that's interesting.
Bad Girl movie.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a surprise to you that there's a Bad Girl
I knew
movie?
there was going to be a Bad Girl movie, but
Oh yeah. I can't remember the name of the actress. She was in The Heights. I can't remember her name now.
Leslie Grace.
That's it. Yeah.
Leslie Grace. Yeah.
I was going to say Rose Leslie, which is not true. But yeah, so it's a Bad Girl movie with J.K. Simmons and all that. I think Michael Keaton's in that as well. Anyway, that's a different podcast.
yeah, that's a different. Sorry, concentrate.
So this is the first episode, the premiere of this 6-episode show. I'll just say my thoughts and then I'll hand over to you guys because my thoughts are going to be very, very punctuated. Actually, I'll hand over to Faridah because I feel like Mo has a lot of thoughts based on Streamr's website. So, I don't know if it's the podcast in me that's always trying to look for a hot take or whatever. But I was watching the episode and I just thought, this is the clearest example to me of the problem I have with Marvel and actually the world eventization of every MCU entry, especially TV shows. Like every MCU entry has to be an event. And I was watching that because I was like, you know what? I'm very okay just watching 6 hours of her and Bruno just trying to figure shit out. Just trying to like, how do I get to Avengers Con? How do I like make this like I've said in this podcast before that like coming of age stuff, that's my catnip. That's like I'm always gonna be there. If you're trying to make a John Hughes film, perfect. Trying to make Breakfast Club, I'm here. I'm going to watch it again. So I was just like, you know what? If this wasn't a thing that people are expecting, because we've spoken about this again on the podcast about how everyone puts the expectations of the MCU on every new MCU entry. And I almost don't even want there to be a villain in this show. Like, just give me her and Bruno and let the villain be like damage control. Like, they're just trying to figure out how to avoid damage control or evade her parents. Just give me 6 episodes of just them like being kids. She's like, you know what? If this wasn't like a Marvel event and it was just a fun little coming of age Marvel TV show, like, and there wasn't all this expectation around it and all these eyes on it, I'll just be so much calmer watching it. Which, that being said, I hope I explained that like I really did enjoy this show a lot. So those are my thoughts. I really love this show, and I wish people stop eventicizing every MCU entry. Farida, what do you think about this show?
I'm gonna squeal again about the fact that I'm actually like a Kamala Khan fan. So seeing her was such a big deal for me. I was like, oh my gosh, you made it to the big screen, girl. I liked it. I really did. I think the MCU has gotten to that point in time, and I was watching it and seeing the fact that we've gotten to Avenger Con now for all the Avengers and how they've like intercept the movies into like how would I say this? How they've made all their big names into like the culture of their Earth. I think it's F616. I'm not really sure what they call theirs.
Yeah.
I really did like it. I did, but it was also just the first episode. So I'm waiting. I'm wondering. I'm watching the Islamic representation closely and sternly. So far, I don't really have anything really bad to say. But I'm still kind of watching it. There's a bit of a spoiler because I read the comics, so I know who her brother is marrying. And I'd really like to see how that plays out.
Okay. I know nothing about this character.
Yeah.
I've intentionally stayed away from any, like, I just like, let the MC teach me what they want to teach me.
Yeah.
And that's intentional. Like, I'm just like, so, like you said, I do not know who her brother is marrying. All this is like news to me. So, yeah. I mean, you're right. Like, again, that's another reason why I wanted you guys on this episode, because I'm not a Muslim and I want to know. I mean, I think in terms of doing the work, like they've hired the right people in terms of like good representation. So it's just like, can they pull it off? Kind of. So, okay, Mo, what do you think about this show?
Okay, so before I give my thoughts on the show, I want to kind of address both of you guys' things first. So, Bunko, your criticism is that they sort of feel it feels like an event because Marvel hypes everything up to be an event, or the fans hype everything up.
Yeah, I mean, criticism is a very harsh word.
Okay, your
I don't know if that is that criticism.
Your
like, hesitation. Yeah, and it's not. It has nothing to do with the product. It's just like the way I know the product will be received.
Right.
It's more about how I know people want the product to be. People want I don't know if people have the patience for a coming of age TV show, which I think they should, and I wish more people did, but I don't know if they do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, more to that point, you've got like Ms. Marvel is one of the shows that was developed with multiple seasons in mind.
Okay.
So you're gonna have because they've got her going to the film. She's going to be in the Marvels next year, July.
Yeah.
And then you've got her returning back for Ms. Marvel in season 2 of Ms. Marvel. So we know that it's getting a season 2.
Okay.
Amazing.
So some shows are being developed as multi-season shows, and Ms. Marvel is one of them. I believe it's Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, and Loki with the 3 that are being developed as multi-season shows. So there is going to be that element of you're going to see her character grow, that coming of age story that you want to see. It's going to be played out in a more episodic format. And the other thing is that I don't know if either of you read my review, but one of the one of my takeaways from the show was that it's the most episodic of all the MCU shows.
Oh.
So you've got
Mm-hmm.
this episode, which is the first episode, which is her getting the powers episode, and then the second episode, which this isn't a spoiler, but it's her figuring out how to use the powers. And then
Mhm.
episode 3, which I've done some digging, but that's a separate, like a discrete-ish episode. So there's enough of like some separation between the episodes for it to feel a bit more like a show that you're going to want to watch and tune into different episodes.
Mm-hmm.
You're watching this show and you're like, oh my god, this is the figuring out how to use the powers episode, or the Eid episode, or the wedding episode, for instance, or the going to Pakistan episode, which we know she does from the trailers. So there's discrete enough kind of divisions in the episodes to deal with that. To the point that you said, Faridah, about her powers, you find out more about the powers in episode 2.
Okay. So
And you
okay.
there's no spoilers, but everyone who's seen the 2 episodes and who was annoyed about the power change has said, like, yeah, no, the episode 2 gives it more of a connection and makes it a lot better.
Yes.
So I know,
Guys.
yeah.
So sorry to cut you off, Mo, but like to the 5 listeners and maybe the 2 extra that came for Farida and Mo, can we stop being angry at things before we see them? Can we stop as a society? Can we just stop this, please?
Yes.
No, okay. I hear it, but the powers were so cool when you see them in the comic book, and her hand is super stretchy and stuff. And I get it, I do, because like
Yeah, but like,
backstory comics, I hope it's not a spoiler, but I don't know. It's because she's like
Inhuman.
something happened. Yeah, she's not. She had dormant
Yeah.
inhuman powers, so obviously that doesn't work for the MCU where it is right now. But I just wanted a bit of a stretchy stretch, like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're not one of the people that was going on the internet.
No, I was like, I was just like, oh, yeah.
Oh, Faridah was on IMDb.
Review bombing.
On the Reddit.
Yeah, she was on that.
It's like, I'm just like, because people just spend so much energy being angry at things before. Look, if you think content is bad, let's all go out to our pitchforks. 100%. I'm with you. But like, don't spend so much time before it has even come out, like being angry. Anyway, sorry, Mo, I cut you off. What were you saying? You haven't got to your own thoughts yet.
But anyway, yeah, so my thoughts on the show were, I think there's a little, I gave it 4.5 stars in my review. And
out of 5, right?
Yeah, out of 5. Yeah, the only reason I gave it that was because there was one element that I found slightly predictable. And it's like you meet a certain character and you're like, okay, well, I know exactly what this character is about as soon as you meet them because of when they're introduced, how they're introduced, and everything like that. So it's just
Is this the second episode or the first episode?
It's one of the 2, but I'm not spoiling that. But other than that, I think as far as like the Islamic representation goes, you get one of the things I was happy with was that the show wasn't afraid to make criticisms about the Islamic community that come from within the Islamic community. And it isn't afraid to do that, and it explores a little bit more of that in the second episode. So some of maybe like the cultural sexism that exists, that's touched upon. Things like just smaller things like that. Then you've also got this idea of like traditional, which you saw in the first episode. These the traditional elder members of the Muslim community will often like pedestalize themselves above like other members of the community that are white, maybe, or choose to live more non-traditional lives. And I think that that's a really important thing to bring to light, because it's coming from somebody who's lived in that community, that's written these things and that are kind of acting in these things. And I think it's that for me is what the show does really well. Other than that, I think it also manages to be the most visually exciting MCU project. Like that texting scene, for instance, that was just such a fun scene.
Yes.
Like I was watching it and I was like, so I had, I'm not saying this to show off or anything, but I got invited. I got invited to a screening of it in London a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to see it.
So cool.
I got to see it on a huge giant screen in the middle of London somewhere, and it was just so cool to just see all of that thing for the first time. It felt like I was watching something like completely new. I think it's the most
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's the most visually confident of any of the MCU projects, and the soundtrack is so cool. It's so good.
It's funny because you mentioned those 2 points, and there were points I was going to make on the literally on my notes right now in filmmaking. Like I mentioned that like Adil and Bilal make the first episode. You're right; it flows by. It feels different. It feels like willing to break the mold. It has all these animations that
Yes.
people might have noticed they watch. For example, In the Heights. Speaking of In the Heights, this show with Lamont Morris, Woke. Those flourishes are there, and like they make it feel like a different show. They make it feel, and again, it works obviously because she's an animator, but that feels different. It feels fun. It feels exciting. It's meant to be a fun show. These are 16-year-olds. Meant to be fun. And then I was like, look, wow, Riz Ahmed is on an MCU soundtrack. Like I was like, wait, is that Riz? The song was playing, and I was like, Deal With It was playing. I was like, oh wow, Riz is on an MCU soundtrack. You're right. It's like the music. Obviously, we just had Moon Knight, which was done by an Egyptian composer, and obviously that also felt very authentic to the Egyptian soundscape, and it's very nice. Again, those are 2 notes I had. I'm just like, yes, continue. Feel free to break the mold.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it's good that what Marvel seems to be doing is when they're telling these culture forward stories, they're getting people from that culture to tell those stories, whether it's a director or it's a writing team or an executive producer or a composer. You're getting all of these people that are embraced in that culture to be able to actually be the ones to get their stories told.
100%. Yeah.
Because most of these comics, apart from Miss Marvel, I believe, were written by white men in the 70s. So when you've got white men in the 70s, and I spoke because I got the chance to speak to the director of Moon Knight a few weeks ago. Okay. And so when I spoke to him, I was saying to him that Moon Knight felt like he was trying to reclaim a story that had been a story about his culture that had been co-opted by white men in the 70s or the 80s. A story about Egyptian heritage, Egyptian culture, and how this white man from New York is going to just take over everything. He was able to reclaim that by telling the story about Egypt that he really wanted to tell. And I think that that's what's really special about this as well. Even though Bisha isn't from not New York, definitely not New York. Even though Bisha isn't from Jersey City. What she's able to do is identify with Kamala in so many other different ways.
Maybe the most important ways, one could argue. I was going to mention that because obviously Bisha is British. The directors for the pilot or the premiere are from, I think they're Belgium. I think they're from Belgium. They're Belgium based. So I think maybe the other directors might be American. I think because I think they have 3 directors on this. So obviously Adil and Bilal, and then 2 other directors who direct 2 episodes each, I think, and they're both women. And I'm pretty sure they have...
Oh, female directors, love it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they have the co-creator on the team as well. Sana Manat, I think is her name, like co-creator of Miss Marvel, the character. So I think, like I said, they're doing all the right things, it's just whether it comes up. And look, it's almost where you don't want to pat them on the back too much because they're Disney, they're Marvel, they're the biggest conglomerate in the world. They should... If you're going to tell this story about people, you should hire the right people, right? But at the same time, it's still not so common in Hollywood that you're like, oh, okay, well done for doing this, even though you should already be doing it. So it's like, you have to praise them, but not praise them too much because it should be the status quo.
More to that, I think the reason that I'm willing to say, like, I'm willing to not say, like, well, you should have been doing it anyway, is because when Marvel or Disney does something, they just throw budget at it. They just throw everything, every resource they have, every marketing resource, every production resource that they have at it. And you can tell that they didn't treat this show as lesser just because it's a story about a 16-year-old Muslim girl.
Yeah.
What they did was treat it with the same, and the budget shows in this, from whether or not it was hiring the behind the screen talent or just the kind of the VFX. I thought there was one bad green screen, and that was the car. But that was it.
I've said this on the podcast before. I've tweeted about how I'm terrible with noticing bad green screen. Right, like I'm someone. Now I'm noticing it more because everybody keeps on shouting. Like obviously something like when the She-Hulk trailer comes out, I see that. You can't not see that. But like that was the thing where you watch a movie and people come and they're like, "Oh, that's this great girl."
Yeah.
But I was like, "Really? I didn't see that." But then the car happened. I was like, "Oh yeah, I see that." Like it has to be really bad for me to see it like immediately. I was like, "Oh, this is not good. You could have shot this on the freeway. Like you really should not have done the green screen for this."
Yeah. Like, just use an iPhone camera or something and go on a road.
But should we talk about Iman, the actress? Because I think she's great, in my opinion. And I've watched some interviews with her recently, and it looks like she is the character. She apparently loves the MCU so much. I think Kevin Feige described that she has like a Unabomber docket of like all her notes about the MCU and questions she asks every time. Like
I love a nerd. Oh.
Apparently she argues with Kevin every time that like our MCU should not be Earth 616. Like it's kind of the way Tom Holland was when he first came into the MCU as Spider-Man as Peter Parker. You're like, this is just her again. And again, after seeing Xochitl Gomez in Doctor Strange earlier in the year, it's like these are people that are just like, I mean, it's painful that like I've gone from looking at RDJ and Chris Evans who are older than me to now looking at these girls who are younger than me. So that's another thing for my therapist. But I do love the performances. I think Iman is very good in this. I think you buy her immediately. You buy that she's this New Jersey Pakistani girl who is obviously like, again, we're all something I talked about earlier in the podcast about how like the white people have gaslit us so much that we think we are so different from one another, but we're actually like we are all way more similar. Like as in, so either it's Asian, Pakistani, like African, like we're also similar to each other as opposed to like the white. Like I was watching, I was like, those are my parents.
Mm.
She's Pakistani, but like that's how I grew up. Like I identify with that so much than any other white person I've seen on TV.
I need to say, can I say spoilers?
Yeah.
Or am I not allowed
No,
to say
say
spoilers?
spoilers.
Okay, so you know that scene where her parents are like, okay, you can go, but your dad has to come with you and he has to be there for 2 hours and you have to read this. That happened to me, in which I was supposed to go for a party when I was 13. But my mom was like, no, your uncle has to come and he has to make sure and he has to take pictures of what you're wearing and da. And I got so upset. And like, you know how she does that? Like, oh, no. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Da. And then my mom did, and I didn't speak for like hours. And then I just came back and said that I was sorry. I didn't go for that party because I was more of a chicken and I lived in Nigeria.
You're not going to sneak out. Yeah, no, you can't sneak out.
I really did feel her in those scenes. So I get what you mean.
Yeah, exactly that. And so I don't have Pakistani origin. I've got Indian ethnicity, but I'm from South Africa originally.
Okay.
So all of that, I think, like, so we moved to the UK when I was 3. And I think the scene that got me, because so this was in the middle of when I went for the screening, in the middle of the theater, I just burst into tears. I was crying but it was like sad tears because it reminded me of my relationship with my older sister. When her brother was saying that he'll go and speak to the parents for them, and I think like that element of representation is like the older sibling. I don't know if you guys have older siblings or whatever, but your older sibling, when you've moved to a different country, is like they're often the bridge between you and your parents. So because they've got more of the culture there. You've got more. They've got like both sides of the culture because your parents have got that side, you've got this side, and they're the sort of halfway midpoint. So they're a good translator, and then it often goes tits up like it did for Kamala. So I texted my mum afterwards, and I was just like, I cried. Yeah.
I don't have older siblings, but I have older cousins, and they literally are my translators. I'm like, I want to do this, and they're like, okay, and they'll kind of try and get it to be done for me. So I get what you mean.
Just go back to my earlier point. I think that's what I mean is like I can coast on watching this 6-episode show just on feelings like that and like things like that on the show. But I know enough about the fan base and like people that are watching MCU entries. I know that like lots of people are going to complain. People are going to throw words like boring, right? I obviously filter those people out, but just when you're doing the podcast, you have to kind of think about things like that. And it's just like, it will probably come up, and I guess people just have to, I don't know, adjust their settings and come watch a coming of age show about a Pakistani American superhero, and then you can go watch the bigger superheroes punch themselves later in the summer. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, but I think even with that, it's a lot of those criticisms came from the trailer, which because people really didn't like the tone of the trailer, they really didn't like the vibe, they didn't like the little sketches that were taking side like on the sides of the screens and stuff like that. They really didn't like any of that. People were like, "This is a kids show." And then on Disney Plus, what it had was like a TV PG rating.
Yeah.
And then it had it like in the UK, this was a 6+. And then people really didn't like that because they were like, "I'm tuning out."
Yeah.
But then Disney updated the rating like last week or something.
It's like a
to
12,
be a
I
12
think?
plus. Or
Yeah.
it's a 12 now. But it wasn't at the time. But it was like that. It was a 6+ or TV PG for about a month. And people were like, "Oh God, I really don't like this." But then, I mean, we watched the first episode, and she says the word cocaine in it, and I was like, "This is not a 6+."
There's a lot of salami here. That was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Okay, well, I'll start with you, Farida, just because Mo has seen second episode. But what would you like to see from the show? The next 5 episodes.
That's such an amazing question. I think I'll start with I really enjoy how much of, even though she's Pakistani American, they're giving her the ability to also just have complexity and not be a stereotype and like be a fangirl, but also like relate to her culture and like that dynamic. So I really want to see it be complex. I'm tired of hearing one thing is good and one thing is bad. I want to see how it's good and how it's bad in the show and how that goes intelligently. I don't necessarily need a big bad, but I really want. I know
You're
that
gonna
it's going
get
to have
him.
a season.
You're
2
gonna
and a
get the big
season
bad.
3.
You're gonna get the big bad. Let's just. He's gonna have. He's gonna have it. It's probably gonna come up next week. Like, you're gonna get the big bad. That's fine.
Mo is dying to say something.
Yeah, Mo. I feel like we just kick Mo out now. I don't know. Like he's dying to speak.
Do it.
Next week he's going to be like, "I told you so. I told you so." I really want to see how they deal. I don't want to spoil anything, but I really want to see how they deal with the wedding, because in the comics, they didn't really dive into the relationship between her brother and his fiance as much as I would have liked. I was going to spoil it. But I'd like to see how that goes.
Yeah.
I really want to see how she is with her powers. I want to see her relationship with Bruno, how that goes. They haven't really talked about the cultural differences between them. I'd like to see how they do that.
I love that her parents just love this white boy. I was like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah.
Her parents just giving Tupperware to this white boy. Do you know what it means to give like 4 different Tupperware? That's like a big deal.
It was.
Yeah.
I also want to see her kick ass a bit.
I'm sure we'll get that.
But maybe like the last episode, I just want to see her, kick some ass. Just a little bit. That's me.
Mo, can you say anything without, I don't know,
Yes.
on one hand combusting and another hand spoiling it?
Okay, so what I won't do, what I might actually do is for your listeners is I'll give a bit of a tease for episode 2. That
Okay.
won't be spoiled, obviously. But what I will say is that the things that you want to see, Faridah, you're gonna get.
Yes.
You're
So
gonna-
happy. Yeah.
You're getting episode 2 delves into complexities. It delves into situations, scenarios, and things that are going to be that complexity that you wanted about her religion, but her also just existing as a person. You're getting all of that. Episode 2 for me was the best episode of the 2 that I saw.
Mhm.
But I mean, it has a 50-50 chance, right?
Yeah.
But I also think for me, what I want to be able to see is I want her to be. I don't think the show is going to make the mistake that I thought it was going to make, because I thought she would, at the end of the first episode, what she was going to do was throw away her powers and be like, "No, I don't want this. I don't want the bangle or anything like that," and just like settle in. But then I was like, that wouldn't make any sense because it's not true to her as a character. It's not true to Kamala Khan. Kamala Khan is like, I want these powers. I've got these powers now, and I want her to keep on to not like say, "Oh, I don't want these powers anymore. I want her to keep on growing and keep on learning." And I also want to see some more Sloth Baby production videos because that was hilarious.
On that note,
Marvel needs
Yeah.
to, yes.
on that note, I love the fact because everyone was like, "How does everyone know what happened in the fight? How do they know about Thanos? How do they know about
Yes.
Control?" And I love the fact that just Scott Lang
Yes.
just doing his podcast interviews. That was brilliant to me. I was like, "This makes perfect
Yeah.
sense." Like, he's just going around the podcast circuit, and I love that because, like, of course, like Scott Lang, it makes sense that it to be him.
Mhm.
He can be a minor celebrity. He can. These are not state secrets. He can say it. I was just like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. And thank you for answering this question because
Exactly.
I would love to listen to
Exactly.
Scott's podcast interviews.
How many monthly listeners do you think he gets?
What, on his own podcast?
Yeah,
I think it's Scott Lang. He's a hero, right? So
he's a hero. Yeah.
No, but remember, but the kids in Ant-Man didn't even recognize him. They were in Endgame. They were like, "Don't you want to get?"
oh
a
yeah, in
picture?"
Endgame. Yeah, but this is post Endgame. He's done the fights. He's done his podcast. I would say this though. He doesn't have to like. Wait, wasn't Ant-Man in the musical, the Hawkeye musical? He was, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
He was.
So his star has blown. His star has blown since Endgame. Then people know about Scott Lang.
Oh
Good
yes,
for him.
yes, that's very.
I would say this. I don't think he didn't become a star because obviously he's not like one of the OGs. I think he had to do the work. He had to go on like the late night shows. He had to do his interviews. He probably endorsed one or two. Maybe no. I was going to say endorsed the diet pill, but no, he didn't do that because he's better than that. He didn't endorse. Although an Ant-Man diet
We all
pill
know
makes
Avengers
a lot of
don't pay.
sense. Like he's like, I can shrink small. It's like an Ant-Man diet pill works. He should think about it. Anyway. But that's by the way. Yeah, I think he did the work and then he became a minor celebrity and now like people know him as Ant-Man and then so
Right. Okay.
Proud of him. He's really evolved from his criminal days.
well, I mean, you say criminal, I say like he did it for society. Yeah, like
Crafty.
yeah, I don't know like I said, I don't know anything about the character or the comics, so I don't have any expectations. Just want to have fun. I think Mo in his review said the MCU dares to have fun for these 2 episodes, and I'm just like, yeah, I want to be smiling throughout, like I did. Like, look, I'm a sucker for coming of age stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to do a John Hughes TV show, go ahead. It's not a mistake that I haven't spoken about Bruno because I liked him, but I don't want to speak about him because I don't know anything about him. I don't want the spoilers. So like, we don't talk about Bruno in this episode. I'm sorry, I had to do that.
You had to. I did it in my review as well.
Yeah. Okay. Any final thoughts before we leave here? I think Faridah will be here throughout the 6-episode run.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when I'll be able to get Mo back, but we'll try to get him back before the end of the show.
Mo, please come back. I want to kind of know spoilers without really knowing what the spoilers are.
So you get every other episode weekly, right?
Yeah, so I'm getting episode 3 at the same time you are.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, not even like a day ahead or anything.
No. Our coverage is only so Moon Knight was weird because they gave us 4 episodes out of 6.
Yeah, I think they were.
So
they were kind of scared. They wanted you to see the twist.
Yeah, they wanted us to see the twist
before.
Yeah.
Before doing
the
review.
For me, they gave it. So I don't know how this happened, and this isn't. Again, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging here. I have no idea how this happened.
You can brag,
but they gave it.
Always brag.
Moon Knight came out on the 30th of March.
Yeah.
The review embargo lifted on the 29th of March. They gave me the episodes from the 11th of March. So I had.
Oh wow!
I'd watched all 4 of them.
Wow.
And then I had basically 6 weeks to wait to find out more information because I had 4 weeks from the.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of sucks now that I think about it.
It was awful.
It's cool, but also kind of.
It was good because I think there was only a handful of press, and it was only a handful of UK press that had got these episodes that far in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was so nobody, not even like my colleagues or my friends in the US, had even heard anything about Moon Knight coming that early. So I was able to put a reaction out. That was great fun. Because I think I must have gained about 500 followers from just Moon Knight.
That's nice.
But anyway, with Ms. Marvel, it's gonna be a weekly thing. I'm hoping with She-Hulk, I get a little bit more access because obviously of my day job and what She-Hulk's day job is.
Mhm.
Oh, a lawyer.
Yes.
Oh my god, you must have loved Daredevil.
What? I'm not
I
even going to
did,
do this.
yeah.
If you have bad thoughts about Daredevil, I'm going to end this podcast now. Let's not even go into that, please.
That's an episode. That's another podcast episode. My thoughts on Daredevil.
How can you have bad? Anyway, I'm not even going to do it. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
I like you right now. I don't want to make you worse.
Opinions.
Yeah, like
I don't have bad things to say about Daredevil. I do have bad things to say about the way that the law is depicted in Daredevil.
oh, I mean, okay, yeah,
Okay.
like who? What? Like, do you go? Like, yeah. Have you seen Suits? Do you want me to show you Suits? Like,
oh yeah,
like,
yeah, I've seen Suits. I've
like-
seen Suits.
Most unrealistic.
Like, we're not
shit.
looking at these shows for accurate pictures of law.
No, I am.
Why? Don't. Okay, guys. Thank you very much.
Before we go, can I leave you with one tease?
Sure.
One tease.
Yes. Yes.
So, I would say that in episode 2,
Mm-hmm.
Kamala loses her footing a little bit.
I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if I just bleep that out. Imagine if I just bleep your tease, just yeah, in episode 2, beep, and then
Oh yeah, do that. That'll really get people thinking. But yeah,
no, I can't be mean. We want to retain our 5 listeners. Okay, guys. Thank you very much for coming on. Like I said, Faridah will be back next week. Mo will be back at some point. We'll figure it out. Can I say what you're doing next week that you can be here so you can get some good wishes?
what am I doing next week?
Well, I thought next week was your birthday.
Oh yes, next week is my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Next week is my birthday. Thank you.
Oh
Yes.
my god.
Did you forget?
I forgot. I
It happens.
honestly forgot about my birthday. But also the week after, I'm in London. That's going to be fun. Because I totally forgot about my birthday. Because it's my co-founder's birthday today as well.
Oh,
And-
you guys are close.
nice.
Yeah, so everyone's birthdays and it was like one of my other press friends' birthday yesterday.
Oh.
Amazing.
So everyone's birthday is just around today. So around my
You
birthday,
just
I
get
might
one
forget
cake for the
anyway.
company, one company cake, like in the middle of both your birthdays. Save money.
No, they should not.
I will definitely have Mo back. If not before the finale, then I think at the finale he will be back. And Faridah will be here every week to talk about.
Yeah, I'm doing nothing.
Faridah,
No, technically, I'm actually very serious. I'm finishing my master's,
Oh.
starting an internship, but I'm also doing nothing.
Okay, this
I just have to.
Sounds-
I'm not doing anything.
sounds like
right
a lot
now.
of nothing, but okay. Anyways, guys, this episode comes out on Friday, and hopefully on Monday there'll be an episode on The Boys, so you guys check that out. Mo has to catch up on The Boys. Faridah has to catch up on Stranger Things. That's their homework. But for now, it's way past their curfew, and Damage Control is on their way. Stewie from Succession, Ariane Moed. I'm not gonna. You guys are lucky I didn't even gush about him this episode. That could have been an entire episode just seeing Stewie back.
Oh, I'm weird. I'm so in love. Stewie!
Anyways, so Damage Control is on their way, and we need to go. So, guys, thank you very much to my guests, Faridah and Mo.
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, of course, to our listeners. Thank you to my regular guest, my regular co-host, James, and our producing team. And yeah, guys, come back next week when we're talking about Miss Marvel, episode 2, and whatever else the show wants to give us. And of course, we'll be joined by Oscar winner and BAFTA winner, Daniel Kaluuya.
What?
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much.
Is that wait? Sorry, you're joking. Do you want me to die? If you didn't tell me and he was there and I just came like this, I'll throw my laptop on the floor. I'll just be like, you're lying to me. That's not him. Oh.